Welcome back. This is Hope at Dawn right here at Hope TV, where you look and you live. Time for the newspaper review. Good morning. My name is George Kishoro.
Beautiful, and we are about to get down to what is being reported on our papers this morning. And of course, starting us off is the Standard here. The top story being resignation fears in Ruto cabinet. So I see here, as President Ruto grapples with escalating dissent within his cabinet, the stepping down of a senior official yesterday and discontent among appointment point to deeper fractures. This is a story covered well on page 4, and maybe we can get down to that so that we can just understand more on the same. And I see here a picture telling us President William Ruto meets former Meru Governor Kiraitu Murungi at the State House in Nairobi yesterday. And I see here that the information that we're getting is that there are reports that some officials, including cabinet secretaries, are planning to resign. So some are unhappy with how the government is run, while others have elective ambitions. Justin Muturi, Public Service Cabinet Secretary, here saying one of the key promises we made was to end disappearances and extrajudicial killings. We vowed never to allow such atrocities under our watch. And that's a story covered on page 4 of the Standard. And we continue to definitely follow up on the same. And moving on, I see that we have another story here. Grade 9 learners face congestion and teacher shortage. That's a story covered on page 2. We also see Kenyans see bleak future for children. That's on the business page this morning. Heavy winds complicate LA fire plan. That's on the international news. And still on the top page, police bosses make a mockery of the courts. For the upteenth time, senior officers have failed to heed court orders. That's a story covered on page 7, titled Impunity. And I also see page 8 here covering Tanzanian activist tells of kidnap horror. And that's a story we did cover just yesterday. So trip from her salon turned into Maria Tesai's worst nightmare as abductors sought to access information in her phone before they released her. This is a story that is covered on page 8 of the Standard. And I see Maria Sarungi here adding, I believe this was an attempt to intimidate me for my activism. I think the abductors were young based on their voices. So it looks like she wasn't even able to make a clear distinction on who abducted her. And I see here she's just talking about it as the car sped through the streets. Maria had a sudden crash, a collision between their vehicle and probably a bus. Amidst the chaos, one of her abductors muttered bunduki firearm, revealing they were armed. Tightly handcuffed and her head covered, Maria was terrified, and the men riffled through her belongings, seemingly searching for her phone and other electronic devices. He says one of the men choked her, demanding her phone's pin, while another sat on her leg to restrain her. And in her panic, Maria gave in, continuing to choke her and pull the handcuffs. And this is a very, very rough story, in fact, of just the conduct that, she had to go through with the abductors. And this just paints a clear picture of what others have also gone through. You notice that most of the videos we've seen, even of the abductees that have been released, you ask them of their experience and they don't say anything. They are scared. They are like, I don't even have words because of just how dark it is. But although others would speculate that it's being threatened and told, don't try to say what we have done to you. And so they're afraid for their lives. But that's a story covered on page 8 of the Standard.
Yeah, and it's actually on the front page, and also you can read extensively on the same on page 7. Maria Sarungi, my 4-hour ordeal at hands of abductors. They say here, by the time her abductors set her free, Maria Sarungi was disoriented, scared, her head, which was constantly pinned to the floor of the vehicle, aching, and her hand numb from the tightness of the handcuffs used to restrain her. Speaking since her release on Sunday evening, the Tanzanian political activist and businesswoman yesterday accused the Tanzanian government in collaboration with some Kenyan security officers of her kidnap and torture. And so you can read that extensively on page number 7.
It's definitely unfortunate and
unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. You know, we pray and hope that there will be a change moving forward. And looking at the Financial Standard this morning, it's why Trump's White House return has Kenyan firms on edge from the uncertainty surrounding the extension of the lucrative AGOA Pact to threats of terminating other trade deals. Local businesses have every reason to worry about his second term beginning next week. And you can look at that story covered on page 20, the Financial Standard. And I see still on the top page, we have Raila bags more AUC support. There's a story also covered, and you can look at it in more detail on the Standard. And going quickly to the sports, no place to hide for Arteta as trophy drought set to continue. Gunners last won a trophy 5 years ago and now trail Liverpool in EPL race. And defiant Arsenal boss says defeat to Manchester United is 1 in 1,000. And moving on, ghost of stalling stadiums continue to haunt athletes. And that's a story covered on page 38 extensively, also on page 39. From Kimarini to Wote, incomplete stadiums are stalling and dashing hopes of better facilities. Some facilities outside Nairobi have stalled for at least 10 years. And that's it, just covering the highlights on the Standard.
All right. Let's look at the Daily Nation and what is being reported. They go with the headline, Drums of War. They say attack dogs. President William Ruto's close allies have in recent days made strongly worded statements vowing to secure him a second term in office in 2027 by whatever means possible, echoing past reckless declarations by politicians that have plunged the country into post-election turmoil. And they say Ruto's silence emboldens culprits. It's a story that is extended on pages 4 and 5, and there are quotes attributed to various MPs and even cabinet secretaries. Some of them, Dadaab MP Farah Maalim, Kapseret MP Oscar Sudi, Tiati MP William Kamket, and Cabinet Secretary Hassan Joho. And so you can read that story on page 4. Still on the front page, learning paralyzed at Moi University as staff down tools. The crisis rocking Moi University appears far from over. Yesterday, both teaching and non-teaching staff announced the resumption of job boycott, accusing the management of failing to honor the return to work formula, vowing not to resume work until their December salaries are paid in full. It's a story that is on the back page of the Daily Nation, and the government had promised to release 500,000 shillings for employees due, but apparently that has not happened. KUSU branch secretary Mary Chepkemoi is saying, due to lack of faith in the university management, we are returning to strike, especially if our December salary is not deposited in our respective banks. So you can read that. A new anti-graft boss to use vast experience in fight against the vice. The new Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Chief Executive Officer Abdi Ahmed Mohamud was yesterday sworn into office for a term of 6 years. He takes over a commission that has been widely criticized for failing to nail high-profile corruption suspects in the government and for taking too long to secure convictions. That is also covered on the back page. There is also a story that is on page 6. I don't fear the sack. Minister says he does not care losing his job over his abduction comments. Speaking out on Sunday, CS Justin Muturi publicly demanded an end to extrajudicial operations. He insisted his statement on the state of abductions, illegal detentions was not political. We must find what the problem is and try to come up with solutions openly without fear of intimidation. And so he says he doesn't fear the sack. Read that on page number 6. Still on the Daily Nation, don't take Kenya back to ICC. Gachagua tells the president. Former DP says abductions, kidnappings and forced disappearance of government critics, a recipe for chaos. Kenya Kwanza government wanted to recruit us into a national lying movement, Naivasha MP Kihara says. That is on page number 8. Impeach me and be done with it, Natembeya tells Ruto loyalists. This is Trans Nzoia Governor George Natembeya daring President Ruto's loyalists to impeach him, saying this will give him a broader platform to be the public's voice. That you can read on page 10. And still the same page, head of delivery services quits as he cites unresolved issues. So say more officials set to resign to protect political ambitions. It's on page 10 of the Daily Nation as well. Then public health care in crisis as ARVs and baby vaccines run out. The government has promised relief is coming, with various medical supplies expected to arrive by February. Indeed, they say a very sick nation. Kenya has totally run out of ARVs, HIV test kits, BCG vaccines, hospital supplies after the Christmas festivities. What a state to be in. Then I see the DN2 powering SME pullout. Ethical aquaculture company aims to reshape the future of fish farming in rural Kenya. It's on page 2 and 3. And the DN2 Healthy Nation, a series of losses. You can read that. And they're talking about dementia stole their parents' memories, strength, and finally their independence. 3 women share the emotional toll, sacrifice, and love that defines their lives as caregivers. That is in the DN2 pullout as well. Let's go to the county news. And in the county news, they report heritage. Why Kilifi historical treasure is in private hands. NMK says archaeological remains protected by law, but that site is not gazetted. Sonko put on defense in graft case. And then I see Ian Sengoe's parents say they will not pursue probe into his death. That is in Bomet County. That is on page number 18. Then as we check on the international news, final draft of Gaza truce deal presented after breakthrough. Both Israel and Hamas continued attacks, so 10 killed in past 72 hours. The business section, UAE to firm grip on Kenya exports. UAE is set to firm its grip as one of Kenya's export markets with a scheduled new economic partnership agreement with Nairobi that would further ease trade between the two countries. State House on Monday indicated President Ruto would sign an EPA with the UAE as part of a trip to the Middle East country, which became Kenya's second largest export market after Uganda on jet fuel exports. And the SGR Malaba extension to start with fresh funding. Construction is set to start early this year with at least 10% of 475 kilometers built by June. That is in the business section. Let's go to the sports pages. FKF will investigate hooliganism in 2 National Super League fixtures. That is the game between 3K FC and Kibera Black Stars at Embu Moi Stadium. And then Kenya races against the time to get ready for 2024 CHAN. Local organizing committee chair Musonye assures that Kasarani, Nyayo will be ready for the tournament. Kenya will be co-hosting the Continental Biennial Championship alongside neighbors Uganda and Tanzania from the 1st to the 28th of next month. And the designated venues include Nyayo National Stadium and Kasarani in Kenya, while Uganda and Tanzania will utilize the 60,000 capacity Namboole Stadium in Kampala and Benjamin Mkapa Stadium in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. I see Emmanuel Wanyonyi from chasing wild hares to Olympic 800 meters champion. A very inspiring story you can read there on page number 30. That is in the Daily Nation. The Business Daily, Ruto Kindiki offices seek 1.6 billion shillings for renovations. State House among buildings marked for refurbishment. Expenditure in collapsed Finance Bill 2024 reinstated. Right. Parastatals outpace others in government debt holdings. Then Treasury to spend 1.8 billion on digital asset regulations. And the puzzle of higher LPG prices despite scrapping of taxes. That is in the Business Daily. And Steve Ouma Akoth, a quote here on page 9. Businesses that want to be competitive should place human rights at the center of their strategies and policies. You can read that on page 9.
All right, and it is 49 minutes past 7. That's it for the newspaper review. Right about now, we're going to have a look at the video of the day.